Yeah. Oh my God. Ah, yeah.
So,
So much has happened since I last talked to you. So I thought it
yeah,
was
what's going on? Give me
time
an
to,
update.
to connect again. Yeah. I mean, um, gosh, what's going on? A lot. There's like a spiritual war going on, Cliff.
Oh, yeah,
You know what I mean?
I do. I do.
So I've just got this calling to just bring people back into their bodies because I feel like there is something going on that is just deliberately disconnecting people from their bodies. So
I
um
totally agree.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's mainly fear. So the
Mhm.
more fear you can get about anything,
Yeah.
elections, climate, anything, Hurricane Hillary, whatever it is, the more you're going to be locked into a pattern in your brain where you can't function. Your executive
Exactly.
functions get turned down. You end up being prefrontal. You lose all that. You end up back in your limbic system and just responding to the fears. And you see it. You see it in the people. You see it in how people respond to each other. It's pretty dramatic, and it's apparently fairly worldwide.
Yeah,
Um,
it really puts you in a state of an illusion of like with almost like blinders where you can't
mhm,
really see any solutions or any other perspectives or views on what's happening. You just feel like you're
right.
almost it's like a virtual reality basically, in my opinion. And yeah, and so I wanted to have you on today, Cliff, because you sent well, first of all, I'll go back. You sent me this clip of one of your teachers, Heidi Haavik, and she was on Russell
Correct.
Brand. And
Right.
is that how you say her name? Heidi Haavik? Or
She pronounces a little different. Havok is pronounced, she's
oh,
Norwegian, it's a Norwegian name, so it's pronounced a little different, but I think Havok
gotcha.
is pretty good.
Okay. Well, I'll do the the southern,
The
the
English
southern
version.
Georgia accent. Um, but yeah, so she was talking with Russell Brand about chiropractic and how there's this she was did this study of her own, and she did it to find out the kind of prove that spine brain connection and how chiropractic can really change our perspective quite literally and open us up to a new way of perceiving both our body and our lives. And in my opinion, it brings us to a higher state of consciousness as well. So any time you have more awareness in your life, this will expand your consciousness. So meaning like just like we've been talking, get you out of that small limited space of being in fear mode and out into more opportunity, more love in your life, greater understanding of yourself and others and the world that we live in, because it's starting to break down like those foundations um that we just took for granted that were always going to be there are not there anymore, and they're falling
Right.
apart. So I think it all starts with your body, as we were talking before, and that's what I've been on a path of doing, is helping people get back into their bodies, really find the empowerment within being in a body. And then once you find that and you know how to take care of your body, and you open yourself up to all these different ways of healing, and then what this does is then you can begin to take in and embody higher aspects of yourself and live that way. So I think it all starts there.
Right. I mean, with what's going on in the world, it's people getting up in their head more and more, and they're being quite disconnected. It's one of the reasons I like things like somatic experiencing, Peter Levine's work, coming back into the body. I often tell my clients, get out of your head, get into your body, go for a walk, get grounded, put your feet on the ground. Because we get so wound up. We get so wound up in our heads that their story goes back to Byron Katie, their story becomes what we live. And is the story really true? And frequently we could say it's not true, it's our perception. And those perceptions get changed and modified by our input from our sensory input. And that sensory input can be impacted, which Dr. Heidi shows quite clearly from our spinal alignment, our movement, our motions. Those things affect all that and can be changed. I love it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's pretty wicked. We see a lot of biohacking going on online and people trying to do things to their brain and take different supplements and methylene blues and go and get hyperbaric chambers or whatever. And if they got their spinal aligned or spine aligned, they might find it a little easier than going out and, doing all this other stuff. I used to like to tell my students, I said, you want to change yourself the most dramatically quickest, just lie in bed in the morning and laugh for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And
I
right, so
remember when
that's
you used
taken
to
out of
say
your
that.
head.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so that takes you out of your mind because it's a little hard to think about all the fear-based things you're going to face during the day of obligations or past experience or whatever. If you're laying there laughing for 10 minutes, and I'd say the number of people who actually did that out of thousands of clients and students and stuff was minimal. If I can count them on two hands, it's just not that many. So they're out chasing around, and then they're being directed and propagandized to be in a fear state
Yeah.
constantly. So yeah, getting out of the head into the body is a great one. And I think she
Yeah.
points out clearly in that video that you can enhance that. You can create that with some spinal adjustments, which I
Yeah.
think's wicked. Yeah,
It's so funny
easy.
because when I watched that the video of her in the interview with Russell, and
Mhm.
in Russell's response reminded me of people, general public's response to chiropractic
Mhm.
medicine. Still to this day, it's like there's this disconnect that actually works,
Right.
and I'm
Mhm.
looking at that saying, how could you, no judgment, I know it's because we have been disconnected severely from even our bodies, and just knowing like
Right.
the vessel that we are living in right now. But just think about like how your spine is literally connected to your brain, right? I mean, and there's this
Right.
and it's all about electromagnetic conduction of energy going through, and just think of anything, any wires that have been pinched off or redirected, that's going to be the same thing that
Right.
happens in your body, you know
Right.
so it's funny to me that people have such a hard time wrapping their heads around this concept that chiropractic is
Right.
is really amazing for healing. It
Mhm.
actually promotes healing in the body and
Right.
better thinking, and better lives, just a higher quality
Mhm.
of life.
Yeah, I mean, it's been embedded again for the public, general public, to fear chiropractic because the AMA, the medical associations, have been on a 100% warpath against chiropractic since the 1920s, and they've suppressed it, interfered with the boards, interfered with the ability for people to get licenses to practice, restricting scopes of practice. I mean, it's pretty wicked. And then finally, in the 70s, there's a big lawsuit, and the chiropractors won it for, you know, the AMA particularly, but the medical profession in general of suppressing it. But the lawsuit winning it didn't change anything. They got like, I
uh
think they got like a $10 fine or something like that after years of being in court, proving that, here's a valid modality for health. Some countries around the world, like Italy, for instance, I had friends who graduated from school and they went to Italy and people got to get their 10 visits a year, no matter what, pain, whatever, and they got to go get adjusted. And friends of mine were seeing hundreds of people a day because people lined up to get freed up and get their spine moving and keep their spine aligned, having a whole change in their outlook on life and how they were interfacing with other people. So
yeah.
unfortunately, in our state here, being the US and Western world, that hasn't happened so much. So I was really excited to see that interview with Russell Brand. I was
Yeah,
like, that's why I
absolutely.
tagged you in it. It's so exciting. It's like, wow, maybe the word will get out there.
Finally, after all these years, it's almost
Yeah,
like
yeah,
and I think part of it is like until you have experienced it, it's hard for people also
right.
to understand how that works. Um, but and you and I have been in this in the business of healing bodies for some time now. So in different ways, so we understand it a little differently. But for the average person, it has been, fed information that like you need to outsource, your healing. It doesn't come from within, but the reality is your body heals itself. You're just using different tools for that. And so, in my opinion, chiropractic is one of the most natural ways that the body can heal because it promotes circulation and, it clears way for the right signals to get in through your body and prevents accidents and those kinds of things, so.
I think part of the problem kind of arose on the premise of the start of it with Palmer, just did somebody, T3, and the hearing came back. And the medical establishment cannot buy into that. How could you adjust the thoracic spine and their hearing come back? And then they labeled that a subluxation, meaning that wherever the problem was that he fixed was a subluxation. So it wasn't dislocated, it was just minorly displaced. And those two things, I think, set the whole profession on this fight to try and be recognized and be a modality. But that's changing. And her work, Dr. Heidi's work, is so big because it shows that it's not a little subluxation. It's just not a bone out of place, but it's really an impact into the brain, and you're really affecting the brain in quite conclusive ways. And it changes the brain. It changes the prefrontal cortex. It changes how you perceive all your senses. You get adjusted. Wow, things look clearer. Oh, how cool is that? Things sound different. And I can tell you from personal experience that I had, I was surfing. I was quite into surfing in college and made surfboards, made thousands of them. But I was surfing in, of all places, Maui on Lahaina, where they just had that huge fire.
Yeah.
And my parents were members of the Lahaina Yacht Club, so I'd go over there and I was surfing. And I got this radical ear infection because in those days, the hotels kind of dumped a lot of their sewage, wasn't processed very well. The water was fairly polluted, got a massive ear infection, lost the hearing 100% in my right ear. I came back to the US, saw all these specialists. They went, oh, wow, this is like, so sorry, so sad, you're toast. It was pretty weird having hearing in one side of your body and not in the other. It's pretty disorienting. There's lots of stuff you kind of count on, especially with hearing, as far as traffic. I mean, simple things you wouldn't expect. So about 8 months later, 10 months later, after seeing all these specialists, I'm sitting at the couch watching a football game, which was off to my left. So I'm sitting on the couch, my head's turned to the left, and I'm kind of watching this football game. Something exciting happens. I go, wow. And my hearing popped back in. And it like came in. I was like, what? How is this possible? This is like, it was an infected ear, lost all my hearing. And I turned my head back. I'm telling all the people around me, oh, you won't believe this. And my hearing just came back. And then it faded fairly quickly within an hour. But I knew at that moment that it had something different than a localized injury. And we could say the same thing with localized back problems and all sorts of things, but hearing's pretty catches your attention.
Yeah.
And so I go, holy smokes. And so I dove deeper into why that might have occurred, and came out like cervical adjustments, all these different things. I did that and I got almost 85% of my hearing back.
Wow.
From doing that. So that was a big aha moment for me. And again,
is that what got you into chiropractic?
It was part of it. So that was part of it. Definitely lead in. One of the big things that got me into it, I attended the first holistic health conferences in the world. They were in San Diego in the mid-70s, called the Mandala conferences. And at the time, I was getting my degree at San Diego State, and I ended up getting it in, switched majors from naval architecture because of calculus didn't quite agree with my constitution. And so I went from a naval architect, and I went to San Diego State to be on the sailing team. So I thought, well, yeah, that's what I'll do. I'll design boats. But midway through calculus, and a funny aside on that, my grandfather was an engineer at Caltech, and he designed the Mount Palomar telescope, the base supports for it, and he oversaw the grinding of the mirror. He was a very German engineer guy.
Wow.
And I'd see him for calculus, and he'd go, "Oh, see, it's so simple." Well, not quite so simple, but he was real big on posture. He was really big on, you have to have this good posture and balance and stuff like that. Being a teenager and a little bit older, you're kind of like, well, yeah, I can just hang out. But that leads this whole thing with technique, and we'll get into that. But so anyhow, so I changed careers, went to nursing. I was thinking of becoming a psychiatrist at the time, and I went to the first Mandala conference. And some of the presenters became lifetime friends. One of them was Paul Brenner, brilliant medical doctor, OBGYN surgeon, later became a PhD, wonderful guy. But another one was John Thie, and he developed Touch for Health.
Oh, yeah.
And so I was totally captured by that, because here you are getting people healthy, each other, right? You're not like being on a high plane, unapproachable medical doctor in a white coat. You're like learning skill sets to share with each other to become healthier. And they're all based on reflex points and balance and neurolymphatics and all this different stuff. So I was like, wow, that is pretty interesting. So I decided to go visiting at his office. And I had no idea at the time he was a chiropractor. So I go up to visit him. He was in Pasadena, Altadena area. I go up there. I go to his office. He's got a big office, a couple stories with a basement, all these doctors running around, patients running around. Next story, he had another building for a bookstore. Other side was a building for a classroom. I'm going, well, how cool is this? You're going to teach people how to be healthy. And you got books and stuff people can study. I'm really a book person, so that was like aha moment. I go in and I realize on the door that he's actually a chiropractor.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like blown away. And there's all these other chiropractors working. I think he had 4 or 5 working for him at the time. But they were seeing clients who wanted to be well. There was a couple of the Dodger players in there the day, spent the day. There was like some famous track stars, the high jumper, a couple of runners, and they're walking around like, not because they're injured, they're walking around because they want to be better. So I'm like blown away with that. And then I go upstairs to his office, and his office is like 4 tables in a room, open room with mirrors. And the patients are sitting there adjusting each other with like reflex points and doing muscle testing, and they're checking points and going, what? And his clients had to learn this Touch for Health to become a client. I'm going, he's on to something pretty good. And then he'd take them after they did their balancing with each other. He'd take them in the other room, a private room, and he'd adjust their spine. And so I was talking to him and said, wow, this is pretty amazing. I really liked your course. I liked your presentation at the Mandala conference. He says, well, you need to go to chiropractic school. So I was like, okay. And sure enough, he said, oh, you got to go to my school. I went to Los Angeles Chiropractic College. Here, I'll give you a reference. You got to go check it out. So I did. And that career changed from a psychiatrist kind of situation to that. And just a little side on that, when I was in my nursing program at San Diego State, you had to do a rotation in the mental health department. Mine was at Mercy Hospital. And they were in there literally doing electroshock therapy to 16-year-olds, 14-year-olds that dazed them for days. They had no idea where they were. And I went, oh, this is much better. I can do some points, I get some reflex, I get some energy flowing. People can feel it in their hands. Their eyes light up. They're like happy. Oh,
yay.
yeah. So that's what got me into chiropractic.
That's so cool. I did. Yeah. That we could use that right now. More of that.
Don't you think?
Turn people on, light them up,
Exactly.
Yeah.
And again, going back to Heidi's work, Dr. Heidi, she's showing that when you do turn them on, their brain changes. And not only does it change, it like functions better. They see things differently. Their hearing becomes better. Their balance changes. A lot of different things happen. And she wrote a wonderful book. That's how, when I saw her, she just finished her book, and she was, doing workshops on what she had found out. So I'd highly recommend whoever's listening to this Watch
Yeah.
that Russell Brand interview. She has lots of interviews online on YouTube, but the Russell Brand one is just sweet. It's just concise. It's 30 minutes. It's not going to take up all day. And if you don't leave inspired, you might as well be, well, I'm not going to say dead, but you are partly dead. So, and then her book's a really good book. It's a short book. It's not very long. It's called The Reality Check.
Yeah.
There's a
I'm gonna get her
website based
book.
off of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's got little videos embedded in the book. It's electronic, it's an ebook. I don't know if there's a hard copy. There might be, but I'd get the electronic version because she has embedded tags that take you to
Oh,
videos that she's made of different aspects. So pretty exciting. So
yeah.
yeah, let me give her one more thing that she did that's really fascinating that I love is she did a study with this other person and they studied people about um, the concept of play it forward or feed forward loops.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So our body runs basically on feedback loops. When our thyroid's too high, it gets a feedback loop and it goes down. Our temperature's too high,
Right.
feedback, we cool down. Well, there's a feed forward loop, and the feed forward loop is that if we're going to raise our hands up, the feed forward is before we ever raise them, we send a signal to our core and we stabilize our spine.
Right.
So stabilizing our core, feed forward, right? We're going to move our arms and our body knows that. But before it does it, it sends this quick message to our core to stabilize, to activate, to get, turned on. And so they took 90 young men and they measured them if, when they raised their arms, if they turned on their core, just EMGs, just simple little test. And 17 of the 90 did not. Now, these were, nobody had discomfort, nobody had pain, nobody had an issue. They're young, healthy, young men. So 6 months later, they measured them again, and the same 17 still dysfunctional. So now, if you think about this, if I have dysfunctional core and I'm doing these motions, movements, maybe I get involved with some sports or, golf, that's a good one.
Yeah.
And what am I going to be doing if I don't activate my core till after the fact? I'm going to blow out a back. I'm going to blow out a disc. I'm going to get changes. I'm going to get wear and tear, much more dramatic. And that's about how many people get back problems, right?
Yeah.
17 out of 90, severe back problems, changes, etc. So what they did in this test was they had the chiropractor again measure sacroiliac joint motion movement. You can do that real easy with lifting up a leg or pushing on the SI joint. And they were dysfunctional. So they gave an adjustment, boom, and there was a 40% improvement after one adjustment.
Yeah.
40% improvement. So I'm going, wow,
Wow.
all these teams, these Pop Warner teams, they do these physicals to if you can play football, physicals to play any sports in high school and college, all these different things. Are they checking that? Are they looking at, are they activating their core? Or are they just making them do sit-ups all day? Right?
That's what I
Sit-ups
was
with
gonna
twists.
say. Like it's the extreme, right? Because we have
Yeah.
too much core work, like overdoing it, which also shuts it off in a way, right? Yeah.
And if they're not activating it, they can do all
Yeah.
the core work they want to do. Six
Yeah.
months later, they're going to check them again and they'll lift their arms up and, oh, but man, I'm cut. I got my six pack. Yeah, but it's not functional.
Yeah. It's not functioning the way
Yeah,
core is supposed to function.
right.
And actually you're supposed to relax your core most of the time, right? People don't know that. They feel like they have to
Right.
hold them in. And what that does
Mhm.
is it puts you in a perpetual state of like your rib cage being flared out like a blowfish, right? And you don't ever like relax that rib cage down. And so that actually puts you in more of a sympathetic fight or
Yeah,
flight mode,
stress.
right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. So
Yeah.
I know
It,
everybody should run out and get their adjustment
I
today.
know. I feel like it should be part of a healthcare plan, like that's the real
Right.
healthcare.
Yeah.
And it's so weird how the medications have taken over. It's not weird. I mean, I know why,
Right.
but it's the moneymaker, right?
Yeah.
But if people had true empowered wellness and knew that they could heal themselves and had the skills to do that, then you wouldn't be able to make as much money in health care as they are doing, with
Right.
the
So that's
pharmaceuticals.
that's another thing she brought up was, our perception is our reality. So our
Yeah.
reality is not really real in a sense. It's our perception of it, and that's based
Yeah.
on what we've learned, what we experience, what we expect to see, and stuff like that. And John Kabat-Zinn was big on that. So when I saw him speak, he was real big on showing a presentation of things that weren't really happening. So there was a couple hundred people at one of his presentations, and he shows this people standing in front of an elevator, and a gorilla walks through bouncing a ball. And then he asked the audience, well, how many times and he told us, count how many times the gorilla bounces the ball. And he asked the audience, and the audience went from 14 to 20. How many times did he bounce the ball? The perception of 200 people was like, very
Right.
few people got the exact number, which, as I recall, was something like 17. I'm like, oh man, our
Yeah, which makes you
perception.
think, wow, what a big difference, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
yeah.
So she's showing in their studies that this thing with this prefrontal cortex and the brain changes is one of them is how we perceive pain. And so we've got this whole epidemic of pain going on now, and we've got this whole opioid
Hmm.
problem in the country. And I think that's one of the things that's going to bring chiropractic more to the front, because most people realize that it helps with back pain,
Yeah.
not realizing it helps with almost every kind of pain because it alters your perception of what that pain is. So I think the opioid crisis, I don't know if anybody watched the movie Painkiller or The
I know.
Pharmacist, but you should watch both those
Yeah.
because they're like horrifying. But that's what's going on. And now instead of that, which was in 2000 to 2015 or so, and now it's fentanyl, and it's about people trying to change their perception when maybe they could just get their spine and their function going better, which would, she shows, absolutely changes the brain interpretation of events. Wow, how cool would that be? Doctor goes to pain clinic. Well, did you get your 20 adjustments already? 20 adjustments? No, I'm here for my script.
Right. Yeah, yeah, and
Oh,
that's
yeah,
and
yeah.
then, with the adjustments goes the program that you do on your own to keep those
Right.
adjustments, right? So
Absolutely.
there's a level of self-responsibility, and then
Hmm.
as that continues, the higher level of understanding of what's happening in your body, because working with clients over the years who are coming off injuries, they're very depressed in the beginning. They feel like this is something that cannot change, that they're going to be like
Right.
this for the rest of their lives, and what I tell them is, no, like this is just the beginning of your journey here. It's you taking it one step at a time, and it's you're going to improve. You just got to start seeing the light at the end of the tunnel and just take it one step at a time, and
Yeah.
gradually as your body starts to align itself, you start to feel stronger, more stable. Your brain feels that, like
Right.
that is literally what you start to embody, that energy. Um, but like yeah, we have tons of medications to just take the pain away or the depression,
Right.
but that's never, it never seems to be a solution for people,
Right.
because it's not an empowered way to do it. You're searching the solution from outside yourself instead of from within. And I'm
Hmm.
telling people a lot lately, like you can't find the answers outside yourself. You can find support, you
Hmm.
can find, guidance and those kinds of things, but you first have to go in to find the right kind of guidance, the right kind of support, right?
Right.
But
Yeah.
when you're
So
in pain, it's different though too. So that's a
it is. Our
you
focus
need
becomes very
support in those,
narrow.
yeah,
Yeah, it
in those
becomes very
times.
narrow, which magnifies the pain. So it
Yeah.
makes it challenging. I found early on in my career that two types of people I didn't like working with so much. Those were on work comp and people who had auto accidents. And the reason I didn't like working with them so well, because if a guy went out there weekend warrior, hurt himself, same kind of injury, right? Nick injury, fell off his motorbike, whatever, surfing, head plant, whatever, they were motivated to get out back and do it. But the
Right.
auto injury, the work comp, they didn't want to go back to work. And so they didn't seem to get better till the case settled. And then it was so elongated that they now implanted the pattern. They had changed their brain literally. Was that the Buddha's brain, the neural pathways towards disease, disablement were in place. I'm going, whoa, you got to break that. It's not worth the whatever you're trying to get out of this settlement to change your life over, right? And
Is
change
it
your
is
options.
that a learned helplessness state in your opinion? Is
Well, I
that what
think
that
there's
is?
secondary gains oftentimes, right?
Oh,
So their secondary gain was maybe not working, economic settlement, maybe they didn't have to work around the
right.
house or whatever, or
Yeah.
they didn't have to perform for their spouse or lots of secondary gain things out there. And which brings up kind of John Sarno. He's another one I really admired. John Sarno, medical doctor, rehab specialist out of, I think, might have been Columbia University. He goes, well, like all these problems that he was seeing was, back problems. We have specialists, all these back problems. And then when MRIs were invented, he noticed on MRIs of the GI tract, people's spines were amiss. They had herniated discs, they had arthritis, and they had no complaints. He's going, wait a minute, why do some people have complaints and none? And the ones with no complaints are often worse. And we're diagnosing and treating based on an X-ray or an MRI in this case. And we're saying, well, you got to take out the disc, you got to do this, you got to do that. And yet this other one has the same issues, no complaint. What's different on this? So he did a deep dive into that and came up with it that it's TMS, tension muscle syndrome, tension around the area. Now, they would say what's tight, trying to prevent from being injured. He goes, no, it's because they're in rage that isn't being expressed. It's in their brain telling their body that they're totally in, unresolved rage, and it's tightening up all this area. Blood supply goes down, and now they're having all this pain, but they're getting cut on, they're getting medicated, they're getting,
Yeah.
yeah. And then he expanded that over the years. Each book came out with, well, maybe that could be related to, neck tension, shoulders. Then it was like, asthma might be related to that. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, it could be. Oh,
Wow.
so yeah, you got to love it.
Yeah, because it is about the fascia too. So the fascia stores the
Right.
emotions, it stores the energy,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And if it doesn't get expressed or released, then it's going to create that tension in the body.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you have all these weird pain syndromes. You have people on medication for life, ruining their lives. And whew,
Yeah, it doesn't make any
yeah,
sense. It doesn't make any sense. We
get,
just have to
get,
start waking up on an
get,
individual level to realize that
yeah,
this isn't working and we got to
get
stop
it, get
doing this.
adjusted.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
You know,
It seems to me to be the easiest path. Like I feel like I'm all, I get weekly adjustments
yeah,
and it's mainly because I was a, gymnast and I was unwinding all of
right.
that stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
I have had many, many tailbone injuries. And I realized that that was something I needed to also look at and work on. And the tailbone injury, I feel like initially resulted in a knee injury, which resulted in
Right,
reconstructive knee surgery. So I've been just kind of unwinding all that,
right.
and it's been amazing. I feel better now than I did in my 20s.
Exactly.
And so, I want to talk a little bit about that too, because this is something I've been thinking about with the tailbone. For many people, I know this is a
Mm-hmm.
common injury to land on your tailbone, right?
Right, right. Very common.
Yeah. So what does that do to a person? It's almost like a head injury when we injure our
Yeah.
tailbone, right?
Hmm. So one of my favorite people who I got to study with for a few years before he passed away was Major Desjardins. And he discovered his technique was sacral occipital technique. Sacrum, occiput, they're connected to the spine. If there's any interference along the way, where the coccyx sits on the tailbone, that sits on the sacrum. And there's ligaments, there's coccygeal ligaments in there, and there's a whole branch of chiropractic that's based on releasing those ligaments related to the coccyx. You just got to love this stuff. So the problem is it's a little awkward to be treating that. So a
Yeah.
lot of people kind of steered away from it, but some of them didn't, and they got really good at releasing this. But a lot of injuries. I had one myself. Went over to a friend's office. He had his couch in his main part of his office. I went to sit down, and I just went boom right to the board on the bottom of the
Oh,
couch. He
yeah.
didn't tell me about it, and that there was just a soft couch with no support. And I injured my tailbone for like 3 years after that. Couldn't sit in a movie theater. It's pretty painful. And then I started working on it, releasing it, doing diathermy on it, bringing energy back to the area, doing this sacral-occipital type of technique to it to get that function. But it's common. I saw a lot of those injuries when different sports got in effect. It was first skateboarding, then it was rollerblading. That was a big one. And then what was the next one? Rollerblading, landing on their tailbone. Oh, I know. Snowboarding.
I was gonna say
Boom.
snowboarding. Yeah,
When
I've
you're
done that.
learning, it's
I've injured
just,
my tailbone on that.
yeah.
Yeah,
In the beginning, it's just boop on your butt,
yeah,
right? Boop.
yeah,
Yeah. And it's
exactly.
not, and when you're learning, you're on the hard stuff. You're not on the soft powder.
Yeah,
You're on the,
right.
yeah. So
And
a
it's
lot of those.
the lack of being able to steer. Like I couldn't steer it, so I had to fall because I was like, I don't want to run into a tree.
Right,
So,
right. Mhm.
but also gymnastics too. I had some pretty bad tailbone injuries. Like one time I landed
Yeah.
on my tailbone on the edge of the beam there where the metal part comes out,
Oh,
that
right.
was really, and that was so bad that I totally forgot about it. And later my dad said, "Don't you remember that injury?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, I totally forgot about that." Like it
Yeah,
was
no,
that
I
traumatic.
disassociated
Yeah,
with it.
it was so
I was had
painful.
an out of body experience.
Exactly. Exactly. So
Yeah.
it really relates to everything though. Because again, it's
Mhm.
the other end of the spine, right? So we tend to
Right.
focus up here a lot, but also, and I feel like there's a spiritual component to it as well. Because I remember
Mhm.
hearing something. I don't know if you've heard this before, but I know that they talked about in some in people who were really like ascended masters or people who are really studying to be fully spiritually ascended would
Mhm.
work on their, like they might have, if their tailbone was out of alignment, they would have to readjust it or they would have to break it to put it back into place.
Whoa.
Have you ever heard anything like that in the spiritual
I haven't
community?
quite heard that. I mean, it's the whole thing with Kundalini, and I think all of us
Yeah.
have sort of studied that at some point, trying to get the release
Elvis,
of
you
the
said?
Kundalini.
Did you
Huh?
say Elvis?
No, no,
What?
we all have delved into it.
Oh, Del.
But, yeah, I don't know about Elvis. He may have. I don't know. I don't think so, though. But we all sort of dove into it, right? We wanted Kundalini. You look at the
Yeah.
caduceus in medicine, they got the
Hmm.
snakes crossing going up the caduceus. And
Yeah.
that's all related to that energy coming from the tailbone area up through the spine and coming
Right.
up to the top. But it's that inner plane of the energy. I haven't heard of breaking it to change it, but
Well, like
I have
to
certainly
put it
heard
back into place because
realigning it.
maybe, yeah, to realign it. Yeah, exactly. But I was
Yeah,
like, that
yeah,
seems extreme. Like I would not want to do that. Yeah.
no.
No,
But a lot
no.
of people have misshapen tailbones. The tailbone's been hurt, falls particularly, and it gets tucked up under, and it can
Hmm.
cause problems with constipation, a
Yeah.
lot of neurological input. There's a lot of nerves in that area that can affect sexuality, a lot of different things. And
Can
you
be
can adjust it.
hyperactivity as well, right? Because the nervous system's heightened, like any kind of spinal
Yeah,
misalignment, I feel like
right,
can create that too.
right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, there's a great one. Who was that? Trying to think. Not Russell Brand, but oh, who is that guy? He'll come to me. He has a presentation out there on ADD in young boys, and in the presentation he shows who's a psychologist in Canada who's being canceled. Who is that guy?
Oh,
Uh,
Jordan Peterson? Is
That's
it?
it. Good one. I knew you'd catch that. Yeah, George Fisher has this great
Yeah.
video of a, I don't know, young 10-year-old kid, something 18-year-old, and he's on a jungle gym doing hand pulls across. And he's going down there. Da, 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 da. He gets off and he's jumping on these different tops of these logs. Boom, 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 boom. He does it again over, over, over. And Jordan Peterson's going, ADD is a construct because boys aren't getting enough exercise. And you gotta give them enough exercise till they're exhausted, or you're gonna get like ADD. It's just that fake diagnosis.
I
And I'm
agree
going,
with that.
wow, is that
Yeah.
not true, right?
Yeah.
So you talk about all these kids on these drugs now. My
Yeah.
girlfriend's a professor, and the kids coming into college now, like so many of them on medications, and they start off on these medications when they're young, and they're like speed,
Yeah.
medications, but when they're young, it acts in a contrarian way, so it seems to calm them down. And then they get to a certain age, and then they start acting more like speed, and now they're all taking these drugs to stay awake in college.
Oh,
Oh my
that's terrible. Yeah,
gosh.
it's weird because I'm so glad they didn't have the drugs when I was younger because
Exactly.
I was like, I was on allergy medicine and that was bad enough. But
Mhm.
it just kids are meant to move, and like the way that we're putting them in school, it's
Right.
just not, it's not conducive, it's not natural to what they're supposed to have. A lot of energy, they're supposed to
Right.
be able to do a lot of physical activity, but yet we're making them into like miniature adults or something, and
Right.
having them sit for long
Adult
periods of time.
discussions, sitting. I
Yeah,
remember
I
when I
heard,
first had, oh, go ahead.
I just was listening over hearing a gentleman. He was walking his son. I don't know. His son is probably like 5 to home from school, and the conversation that they were having, I was just like, "You're talking to your kid like an adult. Like, what you need?
Exactly.
Like, what's happening right now? Like, he doesn't understand what you're saying. Like,
No,
like,
no, it's so true. So
yeah."
true. Yeah. So
But what were you gonna say before? Do you remember?
I got into what you were saying with this adult. I don't know.
Well, yeah, just we don't
Where,
we're and I thought about this too, like no wonder so many adults feel like there's so much suppression in their emotions and their expression because as more people become adults, like in these generations that we're having, be so restricted and with school, and then with like what they're doing and keeping them safe in the name of keeping them safe or whatever it is, it's like there's not any room to play. And so when you become an adult and you weren't allowed to play as a child, what do you think is going to
right.
happen? You're going to blow up because,
Exactly.
you have
Yeah.
no way to, no outlet, no way to, I mean, what you talked about in the beginning, Cliff, was like the people who actually did the laughing in the morning found all the
Right.
success, but so many people would not be open to that because they have never really opened themselves to play. And that's
It's true.
play right there,
Yeah.
and
Right.
as an adult, it's different, than when you're a kid, but you have to be able to do it when you're a kid. You have to be able to play. You have to have some freedom there to explore yourself on the
Right.
physical level too. It's just like, to me, it's just but also there are kids that are doing physical stuff, but they're in more organized sports and stuff like that, so they're
Right.
overscheduled,
Hmm.
overworked, and it's just sad. It's like, what are we doing
Yeah.
right now, like.
I remember like what I remember what I was going to say, but like I remember the first time a client came into me, a patient, and they said that they no longer were going to have PE because they didn't want to take showers. And
Mm,
I went, wait, you're not having PE because you don't want to take a shower after PE? Yeah, I can only do it if I'm in the last class of the day, the sixth period or something like that. I went, what? So nobody's going to PE except sixth period because they can't take showers. And so since they can't take showers, they want to be smelling class. So they just canceled PE. So like there's no physical education. There's no
yeah, they won't
getting
they
out there and running around. I was like blown away.
well, then then that what happens, Cliff, is when you become an adult, you don't value physical
Mhm.
exercise, right? And so guess
Right.
what happens? Like
I
you
know.
like what
And
we're
your brain's being
experiencing now.
seduced with these devices.
Yeah.
And these devices are just causing us to our ability to of awareness. They're
Yeah.
narrowly focusing it to the exclusion of other things. I have a acquaintance who stepped off a curb in front of a car and got killed because she was so focused on her device.
Oh my goodness.
And that's not rare. I remember when I first was in Australia, I think it was around 2005, went out with the students, and they go out and they were like on their phones texting immediately since class was out. As we walked over to a restaurant. I'm looking around me, I'm the only one without a device because texting hadn't caught on in the US. It was like an added expense, but there talking was expensive and texting was cheap. So everybody's on their device texting. I'm like, and they're all like this, their heads
Yeah.
down. I'm going, oh, this isn't a good look. This is
Oh,
problematic from the get-go. So I started taking pictures. I had this huge collection of pictures of people all dun dun dun.
that's a
And now they
great
call it
idea. Yeah.
technically text Nick. Text Nick. And so you got this 10-pound, 12-pound bowling ball. It's going forward, compressing into the spine. And
Yeah.
it's at a young age. It's like 5-year-olds and 6-year-olds. You can't go anywhere. You can't go to a restaurant. You can't go to the beach. You can't go anywhere where people aren't
In their
like that.
phones.
And
Yeah.
it's dramatically changing. You're seeing people with arthritic changes in their necks at 16. Arthritic
Yeah.
changes in the neck at 16, wear and tear. So talking about what that does to prefrontal again, and the whole brain and the circulation, the cerebral spinal fluid, and it's just a disaster, just rolling down the highway without any apparent way of changing it.
Yeah, because this what
Yeah.
the signal will stop if your head's too forward, and it won't
Right.
the brain will almost be cut off from the body, which is so interesting, right?
And these muscles at the base of the skull become tighter and tighter, more
Yeah.
restricted to the point where you can't drop your head down and can't lie
Yeah,
flat.
kyphosis used to be just something that happened to older people, right? Now it's like
Exactly.
young people are experiencing it.
Dramatically, not even
Ah,
slightly. Yeah. Yeah. It's
yeah,
pretty
so
wicked.
it's crazy. I saw one day, I've seen this actually more than once, somebody on their phone on their bike, looking down at their phone on their bike. I'm like, that is insane. Like, what are we doing right now? Like,
It's,
it's just such a disconnect.
yeah.
So I did this thing where, and I think I'm going to do this more. I am going to do this more often. I feel like everybody could do this and see, what they get from this, but a week detox off of social media, at least,
Right.
just a week, just give yourself a week
Mhm.
and just try it and just see how you feel after that. And I was like, this was lovely. Like I felt like I was, and I don't feel like I'm on my phone all the time, but still the amount of social media that I was consuming was having
Right.
effect on my reality. And
Mhm.
I felt this shift of reality when I stopped for that week.
Yeah.
And so now I'm going to recalibrate how I'm going to use it, because I just, I can't take that disconnection like that.
Right.
That's not, I don't feel, um, like it doesn't serve me at all to be feeling like I'm always focusing on this, consuming other people's information. Because it's
Right.
like, these aren't people, like some people I know personally, but some people I don't. And so does that really matter to my life? And
Yeah.
so getting back to people that who you're friends with, who are in your life, who are in your community, I think is really important for us to step back into, like, okay, because this mental health thing is a big thing right now. And I feel like
Right.
this is part of it, is because we're in our heads, like you said in the very beginning, and we're on our
Mhm.
phones and we're disconnecting our brain from our body. And it's like,
And our
we need
focus
to
is
get
very
back.
narrow.
Exactly, very
Right.
narrow. So
Yeah.
I feel like the only way we can do that is to just, almost like, a detox is going to be, the word detox is going to be completely different from now on, right?
Yeah.
We need to detox, because I remember when I first met you, I don't even think that, I mean, social media was just starting to come in, but
Just
it
barely.
wasn't like it is now, and we weren't using
No.
it like we do now. And so I mean, I was starting to feel like, oh wow, this is what it felt like before all this came in. Like,
Yeah.
and this is not something I really need. I didn't even really miss it. And I was like, wow,
Mm.
this is having an effect on me. My
Well, there's something to be said for ignorance is bliss, right?
Yeah, there
Bury
is.
your head. I mean,
Yeah.
there's an old saying, there's a story about Thich Nhat Hanh. He wrote like 100 books, and
Yeah.
a Buddhist meditation teacher, peace, trying to get peace in the world. And there's an old story about him walking into somebody's house, and he walks and in the corner of the house, they have a nice big TV. It was a box TV back then. And on the top of it is the picture of Buddha, and he gets kind of upset. He's with the guy's house. He's going, "Why do you have the Buddha on this box that brings all this awfulness into your house?" Whoa.
Oh
I'm
wow.
thinking, I'm thinking, here we are with this little device that brings in all the troubles of the world, right? If we
It
stop and
really
take
does.
off the device and we look around our office, it doesn't appear to be happening, right? It doesn't appear to be all this chaos and horribleness and fear.
Yeah.
Um, Let me just, somebody's trying to send me a hold on, accept, don't accept. Okay, we'll just keep talking. Can you hear me okay?
But yeah, yeah, yeah. That
So
isn't
much
fear an acronym for what is an acronym for? False.
false evidence that appears real,
Mm-hmm.
right? So here you are, you're being driven by this thing. Here you got the Buddha, but sitting on this box that's bringing in the world's, and they don't show you good news on those. They
No.
don't show you anything that's happy. I noticed that my dreams change a lot if I connect to social media during the evening. So I'm a big fan of dreaming and looking at your dreams and trying to get a
Mm-hmm.
little bearing on them. And they change, and not for the better,
Yeah,
right?
no, I
And they're,
noticed that too. I was actually thinking about that this morning. Yeah. About
yeah.
how my dreams, if I watch a show before I go to bed, or
Hmm.
yeah, or if I get on social media, yeah, it does affect that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
pretty radical.
What have you noticed
So
in with your dreams though, how it affects it? Do you feel like
there's more uncertainty, there's more fear in them,
Mhm.
there's more things that aren't clearly happening in a positive way.
Mm.
So I like I like dreaming. I have tons of dream journals. I got, I don't know, a lot of them, and I
Yeah.
look back on them, and if there's repetitive dreams in there, then I do a dream process that I learned from Robert Johnson. But now they're not, there's not repetitive. Again, going back to social media, and then if I'm away from it, I'm traveling, or I'm in Canada at Hollyhock, one of those places, they're completely different,
Yeah.
right? So there's a certain degree of your dreams are molded by your experiences of that day, right? If that day is watching a Netflix movie, it's not so happy, and then looking at social media, oh wow, whoa, yeah, and then oh, night night. Well, your subconscious is working away in there. Whoa, processing that thing, clearing that bridge out of there.
Absolutely. And the thing
Yeah,
is, like, do we need to, I'm not saying, I always tell people, like, I don't think it's great to be delusional about reality, but I
right,
also think that you can't really do anything about that outside fear porn or whatever is being put out
right,
to you. What you can do is work on yourself and your own
hmm,
shadows, your own stuff around that, like,
right,
so if something comes up from all of that and you're feeling like it needs to move through, then that's what you work on, like we talked about
right,
in the beginning with the fascia. It holds all these memories, it holds all these traumas and experiences, and even like stuff you watch. I feel like that you hold that kind of stuff in there too.
right,
So the detox is really about detoxing information, not outsourcing your own insight and perception and way of seeing things
right.
out to other people. That includes your
Well, yeah.
intuition.
Like, how about as
Yeah.
a parent? So you're a parent,
Hmm.
and you always tell your kids, "I want you to hang out with the good kids. I don't want you hanging out with the bums and
Yeah.
whatever." So it's the same with your thoughts, right? Hang out with good people, good thoughts, good people who can be supportive and enhance your life. Don't hang
Right.
out with the
Exactly.
fear-based people. I mean, there's so many people, the conspiracy theorists. Unfortunately, conspiracies seem to be real these days,
They
but
do. Yeah.
you can get really wound up in it. I mean, I've got friends
You
who are so
can.
wound up into them that they're altering their lives and they're what they're doing.
Well,
So
it's
I
because
go,
we're
whoa,
creating our reality. We are
yeah,
doing it,
that's
right?
it. That's it.
Said it
That's
so
it.
many times. Everybody, that's been said many times, but I don't. Yeah, that's the thing. Like if you have the blinders on, it gets pretty trippy, honestly. But I think that that's where you have to start with yourself, because you have to, start discovering what is there. Um,
Mhm.
I
That's
mean,
that. That's what I like
yeah.
about like open focus brain and Fahimi's work, the great
Uh huh.
book, Open Focus Brain, and in there he describes how we have awareness, how we pay attention. And we have like these 4 degrees of paying attention. One's very narrow objective. Well, that's can be very fear-based. It's very stressful. And then we shift from one thing to another, which is concept shifting, which is very stressful on the brain, on the body,
Yes.
on tension in your neck, boom, boom, boom. And then the other end of that is to be immersely diffused in the moment. That's like, ah, it's like being on the stream of your life. Ah, trying to, I don't know, fly fish or something. Ah, it's like,
Yeah.
wow, it's all here. We're all immersed in the moment. We're totally spread out. We're not like, oh, my back's killing me. Oh,
Well,
geez. Oh.
well, it's limiting because you're limiting yourself to that small space, instead of
Right.
realizing we actually are infinite within
Hmm.
our energy, and we there's no ending to it, I suppose. So
Right.
if you think about that, that feels really expansive. You're just like, wow, okay, I don't really need to do anything right now. And I can just be here right now in the moment. And then this will lead me to the next
Exactly.
moment.
Hmm.
And that's really, in my opinion, how time actually works. But we've
Yeah.
been led to believe that it's linear, that we have to do sequential this to this to this. It's like, no, like that's just an illusion in a way. That's kind of what
Yeah.
keeps us in this perpetual suffering, kind of
Right.
mode. Yeah.
I mean, you think about it when you're passionate about something, when you're involved, when you're in love,
Yeah.
time changes.
Yes,
The
it does.
passage of time, when you're bored, when you're like in fear, you're on linear time, literally. You're like going,
Yeah.
oh man, another minute goes by. Wait, I need my pain meds. Oh no, my psychotropic meds. Oh, is it time for my pros?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, we're afraid
Yeah,
to let go. We're afraid to let go
yeah,
and do, and I can attest to that in my life. Everybody's been there. We all are afraid to let
yeah.
go. But again, it's like it takes just you practicing. Um, like I said with the stuff I teach, it's about prioritizing the time with yourself, really like being with yourself and finding out what is there, what is there,
Hmm.
and
Yeah,
um finding the right support along the way as well, of
right.
course, with the right people. But we have to all start with our own insight, our own guidance, and how we want to do
Hmm.
things and stop outsourcing it to the media, including
Right.
social media,
I,
and
I think I think it was Bradshaw that said when we're very young, we're starting our life and we get our experience and we're given a sack. And in this sack, we put all of our issues, our challenges, our troubles. By the time we're a young teenager, the sack's getting a little bigger, but we're still carrying it because we're not letting go. By the time we're a young adult, late teenager, the sack's getting bigger. By the time we're an actual young adult, the sack's so big we can barely get in an elevator. And we're still carrying it. We carry it to the end, and the thing's weighting us down. And man, letting go is such a skill. I put a list together
well,
of
and that's why
about
your back hurts.
yeah, about 8 exercises of letting go. And I tell my clients, just pick one of them. One of these exercises about letting go. Just pick one or two or three and just practice letting go and get that sack to start unloading. To free yourself up, laugh.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah,
because it's like when we take life too seriously, it just it becomes really heavy, right? It becomes really heavy.
quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sacks just
Well,
oh.
this has been an amazing conversation, Cliff,
Yeah,
and
I'm so
thanks
glad we
for
hooked up. I'm glad you
yeah.
liked Dr. Heidi's presentation with Russell Brand. That was great.
Yeah, and
Um,
I'm gonna get her book for sure
yeah, I
because
highly recommend it.
yeah.
It's a fairly easy read. Get the electronic, like I said, because there's embedded links to her um, videos that she's put together that are nice, simple videos, real
Absolutely.
clarity. And hopefully your audience can all dive in and get her book, support her work. She's in New Zealand and works out of the chiropractic college there. Great stuff. And it's inspiring stuff. You want to
Yeah.
get inspired, read this stuff, look at her little videos and go, well, I can do that. I can get that. I can do that.
Yeah,
And then
because it's
go
empowering
do
to
it.
know we can heal ourselves, right? I mean,
Yeah, exactly.
it's all here. Like nature wouldn't have done it any other way, right? I mean,
Right.
it's a full package, right?
Yeah.
We just don't know how to navigate. It's like I've said this before, it's like stepping into this high tech, like space ship or
Hmm.
space vehicle,
Right.
and just being like, not even being able to understand what the controls are because it's intuitive, right? So
Mhm.
that's how our body works too. It's like we're in
Yeah,
this,
I used to,
yeah.
first time I went to Byron Bay, Australia, I got to go out to the Steiner School. Here they call them Waldorfs, but the Rudolph
Oh
Steiner School
yeah,
in
yeah,
Byron
yeah.
Bay. So
Uh-huh.
I'm sitting there, and the people I was staying with, they're kids in the school. So I'm hanging out and watching the school, and they're doing this stuff. And then I see the older students, and I realize that the primary teacher goes all the way through with them, right? So they go from
Yeah.
kindergarten to 12th grade, the same teacher. I'm going, well, this teacher knows a lot about these people. What if we started a book on the kids, and it was going to be their owner's manual? Now, wouldn't that be cool? We start a little owner's manual. Wow, how I responded. I fell down. I got hurt.
That
And I,
would be
you
such a
know,
good idea.
yeah, I had
Yeah.
this trauma, I had this thing, I had these dreams, I had this, an owner's manual. And I thought, wow, we should do this. Everybody should get their owner's manual going. So when they hit 30, 40, and they're going through the divorce or whatever, they go, whoa, wait a minute, I had resiliency. Back when I fell off that bicycle, I needed stitches, but I was hanging in there or whatever, right?
Right.
So,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's
owner's
genius. I
manual.
love that idea. Yeah.
You'll have
Oh
to
my
take it
God.
up and get it out there.
Yeah, definitely. Your next project, right?
No, no, I'll give it to you. I'm passing the torch.
Oh boy. It's quite a project. Well, we didn't even talk about your musical career,
No,
the
well,
photography. You're like amazing, and have like you're my inspiration for like not just having one identity, but many different ones, and trying them
right,
on and showing people that they can do that too. So,
right.
yeah, thanks,
Well,
Cliff.
we'll do it another time, but I gotta
Yeah,
say, appreciate the flute.
you are so welcome. It's my pleasure. I'm glad you're enjoying it.
I
Yeah.
am. Well, good chatting, and we'll meet up again down the road.
Yeah. Do you want to leave anybody with what are you offering these days? What do you want to offer the
I just
audience?
mainly doing online consulting. People who want to dive a little deeper into their lives, find tools, techniques that they might help straighten them out. They might need some help with lab test interpretation. So I do more like coaching work, I would call it now.
Okay.
Coaching
Yeah.
them through their rough spots, or hopefully they want to just be a better human being. Um, Maybe they don't want to change at all, and they just have some issues that they need to talk about. So that's what I do. So I do that 2 days a week, Monday and Wednesday. They can contact my office, 858-272-2333, or they can send an email. My staff's in Monday, Wednesday. She's on vacation this week for the doTERRA conference in Utah.
Okay.
Taking off
Yeah.
to see Yellowstone. We're very excited about that. So, but otherwise, yeah, they could call, they can leave an email, you can post office email, just drccoliver@att.net. But
Wonderful.
yeah, I'm happy to chat with people and help them on their journey.
All
And
right.
we
Well,
can talk
thank
about all
you.
this stuff we're talking about.
Exactly. Yeah. Empowered
Yeah,
and true empowered wellness is when your body,
exactly.
you know how to use the tools that your body provides, in my opinion,
Right.
and read it too. So thank you so
Totally
much,
agree.
Cliff. It's been a pleasure,
Okay,
and I
thank
hope to get
you.
out there and visit you sometime soon again.
All right. Hope
But
to see
yeah,
you.